Hey, this is Chris. So I'm going to talk to you today about why you get burned by marketing agencies. So we hear this a lot in pre-sales when we're talking to people before we work with them. And there's really three main reasons why you'll get burned by marketing agencies. So I want to go through those and explain them to you. And the first one is that you went cheap. And ultimately, you get what you pay for. And so to help you understand that, I'm going to explain how the agency business model works because you'll see a lot of pricing variation. And if you don't understand what agencies do from a technical level, you may not be able to differentiate the level of services involved. And so it all just might seem the same to you, which totally makes sense. And so if you understand how this works, I think it'll make sense to you. So ultimately, the agency business is you are paying for hours. Now, no one ever wants to be billed hourly. Like you can't, it's not easy to quote. It's not easy for you to compare. And so what many agents and probably most agencies do at this point is they will put together a set of standard packages and standard deliverables at a price that has a defined and acceptable margin for them. And so this is what they offer you, more or less. There's still people who will do time, material, and some basic things, but that's basically how it works. Now, if you look at agency economics, for a healthy, sustainable, stable agency, the average gross margin, which is total revenue minus cost of goods sold, so COGS, should be about 67%. Okay, so the other 67% of the gross margin goes to things like non-COGS labor, administrative expenses, non-COGS tools, marketing, net profit margin. Okay, so that's what that 67%. So that 33% of COGS includes the direct costs of servicing customers. And so that includes labor for servicing customers. That includes tools for servicing customers. Okay, and so let's just, for an example, let's just say your average labor cost is $30 an hour. Okay, so that goes into COGS because that's what we the agency are paying to execute the work done for the customer. So if you're paying an agency $300 a month, okay, that's their quote, then if you take out 67% of that for gross margin and leave 33% for COGS, that leaves about $100 for the agency to spend on you. So say they take out, $33, $40 for tools, which these tools are expensive. That leaves $60 to work with, which will get you, if your average labor cost is $30 per hour, 2 hours of work per month. Now, how much work can get done in 2 hours? Very little. Not much. It's not going to move the needle for you. So, at this price point, what is happening? Well, there's really two scenarios here. The first one is it's either a one-man show, so it's just a guy, and that's okay. That's where most agencies probably start. But he's really charging too little to survive as a functional business. And as he takes on more clients, his time is limited. And so he's going to get overwhelmed. And what you're going to see is deliverables are going to slide. He's not going to get back to you in a timely manner. And he's just going to get overwhelmed and overrun because you can't provide these services at that price point. You simply cannot at American labor rates. Now, here's the other scenario. If you entirely source your COGS labor overseas, labor is cheaper, you can get more hours out of it, you can get something done. The problem with that is that typically introduces quality control issues. And you've probably experienced this. So this is what happens at the low end of the price scale. Okay, so if you've been burned by that, that's why. The economics aren't sound, it doesn't make sense, it's not a supportable or sustainable business at that level. Okay? Now, there's also a danger on the high side. What you'll see on the higher side is that agencies are moving towards value-based pricing. And so this is pricing that's just unmoored from labor economics. And they're just saying, well, hey, we're delivering, this huge value. We're going to charge you accordingly. And that's fine. They can do that. It's not a bad model. But they have sky-high margins. It's great for their business. But they may not always deliver the ROI to justify it, especially when, frankly, you could probably pay half the price and get the same or better results. If at some point you can't have more expensive labor, like you're not going to pay $200 an hour for a web developer. You're just not. And so, this is where it breaks down, and where now you're not really looking at this from a COGS and gross margin standpoint. You're just racking up margin, counting on excellent results. And if you deliver great results and the customer's happy, no problem, no problem there. But if you're paying the sky high amount and then results aren't delivered, well, now you're unhappy, you feel burned, and it makes a lot of sense. So there's really a fair and a reasonable balance here, and that's how we set our pricing. So it's not arbitrary at all, and for us and for many others, it's designed to balance just a healthy and sustainable business that will be here in 10 years with delivering top-notch client results and excellent customer service. So that's the balance we have to set, and that's why there's this wide variation on pricing. The low end, stay away from it. The high end might not always work, and there's this kind of happy middle where, if it's been done thoughtfully, you're probably getting a good deal and you'll get good results relative to the pricing that you're paying. Okay, so that's reason number one. You get what you pay for. Okay. Now, reason number two is that the agency doesn't know how to execute. And this happens. It's typically a newer agency, or it's one that has scaled so large that they've lost control of quality. This is really some of the much bigger agencies where they also maybe have lower prices. It can be hard to scale this. It can be hard to find talent. It can be hard to find people who know what they're doing. As you scale, your processes might break down. And so it can happen where if you've just got an agency that's either too new or in just this rapid scaling mode in a way they can't handle, things might fall through the cracks, and that can happen. Okay. But I will say that most agencies are decent in trying to do a good job. There's a reputation in the industry of scammers. I just don't think that's true. I don't see it. Most of the people I see are professionals that are trying to do a good job. They're mostly just nerds like me who like this stuff and want to do a good job for their customers. Most of the scamming is coming from overseas, frankly, and that's generally on the lower price point. Stay away from it. Problem solved. So you're generally best served by going with an agency that knows your industry, that's worked with customers like you, that has experience getting results in that industry, because otherwise you're paying someone to learn on the job, and that might be worth it to you. We have people who have chosen to go with a local SEO agency instead of us, even though we have the industry experience, because they want to walk into their office and talk to them. Well, guess what? That local SEO agency doesn't want you to do that. They don't want you in their office. That's not really part of what they do. And you're not going to do that. You don't have time for that. A lot of our customers don't have time to answer our phone calls. So I don't believe for a second you're going to march over to the SEO agency and sit down there and talk to them. So don't make your choices that way. It's not a good decision generally. And you're walking yourself into getting burned again. Okay, so reason two, sometimes agencies just don't know how to execute, but I don't think that's the most common reason. I think the most common reason is number one. And the second most common reason is number three, which I'm going to cover next. And that reason number three is you. Maybe, just maybe, the problem is you. Now, I'm going to put some scenarios here, some questions here, and if it applies to you, I'd consider whether your agency is at fault or if you are at fault. Do you answer the phone and reply to the email when your agency calls or messages you? Do you provide access to everything they need to do their work? Do you interfere in their work? For example, by taking a call from a Google rep and editing and modifying the Google Ads campaigns they built for you. That breaks it. Those Google reps have no clue what they're doing, except their job is just to inflate your ad spend. So they come in there and they lie to you, and you should never, ever talk to those people. I have another video on this. That's ridiculous. It's a scam. Don't talk to them. But if you do that, you're interfering in your agency's work. You're going to break it, and then you get mad at the agency because it's not working. Well, I'm sorry, you did that. You messed up. Do you refuse to follow your agency's advice? They tell you to do X, Y, or Z. You're like, no, I don't want to do that. Okay. I don't tell you how to run your industry. You probably shouldn't tell my team or your agency's team how to do their jobs. Do you fail to provide things that they ask for, like customer lists, like complying with getting reviews, access, all these things? Do you not give them enough budget or a reasonable time to get results, to complete the objectives? and do request out of scope work. These are just some, but these are examples of customers who are just not letting agencies do their job. And then results don't follow, and they get upset, and they go to another agency, and they tell it, they say, hey, I was burned by these last guys. Well, sorry, that was on you. So there definitely are some bad agencies out there, but I don't think it's that common. I think most of them are good, just trying to do a good job for their customers. I don't think most agencies are out to scam people. I've never seen any evidence of that. Every agency owner that I've ever talked to, and I've talked to dozens, if not hundreds of them, are just guys, girls trying to do a good job for their customers. So in many circumstances, and maybe even most, not all the time, client behavior is a direct cause of the client getting burned. And when I hear it has happened multiple times to someone over and over, that is a huge red flag to me, because what I'm pretty sure most of the times what is really going on there is a failure to cooperate. So if you feel that you keep getting burned by agencies, take a moment and reflect on where your inability to work with them maybe is contributing to that problem. And maybe it was a bad agency, maybe it was 5 bad. It could happen, but it's always good to know accurately what is going on and make sure that you're not contributing to the problem. So those are the top 3 reasons why people get burned by agencies: low cost, newer or too big agency, or they themselves are shooting themselves in the foot. And that's it.